Hello and welcome to Actually Sustainable, podcast for high achieving women, mostly with ADHD, but anybody's welcome, who are experiencing burnout or trying to prevent burnout, trying to recover from burnout, who would like to build and hopefully sustain an actually sustainable life. Legal disclaimer, this is not a replacement for any kind of medical advice or the care of an actual trained professional for you individually. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only, okay? All right, welcome to episode 8. Woohoo! You can't heal in constant emergency mode. Now, today we're going to talk about one of the hot topics of today is cortisol. I'm sure you've heard the term cortisol. If you're in the medical field, I'm sure you've heard of it as well. So cortisol is a hormone, a neurotransmitter basically, in our body that has a lot of functions. And it's the main one that helps with our fight or flight kind of response, but it's also just a normal thing that happens, right? Normally it kind of starts to increase when we wake up. It helps us kind of wake up, and then it kind of rises throughout the day, kind of peaks in the middle of the day, and then it drops back down. That's kind of how it's supposed to be. It's that kind of bell curve, upside down, whatever. And as it goes down, we start getting tired, we go to bed, we sleep, we do well, right? If we're scared, upset, anything, our immune system, not our immune system, our fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system gets stimulated for whatever reason, our cortisol levels spike. And then that tells a whole lot of body systems to do a whole lot of different things, like basically protect us right now in this emergency. We are emergent, so it works with our sympathetic nervous system to help tell different organs to do things. So it'll suppress the immune response, because I'm not going to worry about fighting off a cold if I'm running away from a saber-toothed tiger. That tiger's going to get me long before the cold is. The cold's going to take several days to even show up, and then I'm going to be miserable for a couple of days, and maybe I won't be able to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. But really, am I really going to be exposed to this cold virus for however long it takes me to run away from it right now? Probably not. So it's okay. I can suppress that immune system for that little bit of time while I get away from the saber-toothed tiger, and then I'll survive. It tells the digestion to slow down, because I don't need blood at my stomach digesting my food while I'm running away from a saber-toothed tiger. I need that blood to my muscles and to my brain, so I can think ahead of where I'm going to go, and so I can run faster. It's going to make my heart rate go up. It's going to make my respiratory rate go up. It's going to make a bunch of these other symptoms happen because I need to be able to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. So the cortisol helps with that. The thing is, we're not actually running away from a saber-toothed tiger, and we don't actually stop that process. So a lot of issues in our modern day society are because we do have that kind of constantly high cortisol level. For whatever the reasons are, we end up kind of letting it stay high. We wake up and it's elevated. It stays high throughout the day, and then it doesn't have that drop. And then that's one of the reasons that we don't sleep. And then if we don't sleep well and get that restorative, good restorative sleep that happens usually later in the night, our low wave sleep patterns are part of the sleep, we end up having higher cortisol levels as well. A good book to read, if you can find it, it's a little older now, and so it's a good one. I haven't found it's the one that I've read most recently, and it is good for a lot of cortisol research and explaining the basics of it, but it is older, so some of the science and medical science behind it, like some of the things that we've learned and treatments and all of that, have changed. But if you want to understand the basics of cortisol, it's a good book. It's called Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. But again, read it with a grain of salt. If you're in medical stuff or thinking about these treatment protocols, they're not exactly up to date. I'll put the link in the show notes. But the zebras don't get ulcers because they run away from the lion, and then the lion goes off and does something else, because the lion can't run all day long, because if it doesn't get food, it doesn't have energy, and it can't run either. So the lion's going to chase for a little bit. The cortisol is going to spike in the zebra. It's going to reduce its digestion. It's going to increase the respiratory rate, heart rate, and blood flow to the muscles. It's going to increase to the eye, to the brain. It's going to dilate the eyes so that we can see any rocks we might trip over. It's going to increase our overall awareness and our sensitivity and our vigilance to everything around us, because, you know, what if we're being hunted by an entire pride of lions? Maybe one of them, I don't know if they actually hunt in prides, but I feel like they do. So what if one of them's chasing you and there's two flanking you, and now suddenly they're going to jump out? So we have to be hyper vigilant against that. And where are we going, and what's going to happen, right? So it triggers all of those responses. And then eventually, hopefully, we get away within a couple of minutes to, you know, an hour or whatever it is. And then we go, okay, we're safe now. All of that can go down. And our digestion can kick back up. Our heart rate can go back to normal. Our respiratory rate goes back to normal. Blood flow comes out of the muscles. They don't have to be tense and ready to run at any second. Our vigilance overall goes down, especially if we're in a pack, because other people are, you know, others in our pack are going to be, or herd, I guess, are going to be vigilant as well. So we don't have to be the only one paying attention. So we can only sort of pay attention, and then that way the others can help. And so all of that goes down, and we do better. And our cortisol levels go back to normal, kind of doing its normal kind of bell curve. We sleep better, we do well, we move on. When we're stuck in burnout and we're stuck in this cycle, cortisol doesn't do that. Cortisol stays up, like I said. And so we end up having digestive issues because we're not sending the right signals to our stomach to actually digest things well. So we don't digest them fully. We might overproduce stomach acid for long periods of time, whether we have food in our stomach or not, because normally acid produces we're hungry. A little bit of acid starts up, kind of building, as you know, that's kind of what an appetizer does. You eat a little bit, kind of stimulates the stomach to produce acids. That way, when you finally eat the whole meal, it's ready and raring to go, and it'll digest your food faster and more efficiently. And so it's kind of constantly kicking up this extra acid. So you're going to get ulcers because that acid's going to eat through the mucus layers and the membranous layers on the inside, the linings of your intestines. You're going to have muscle soreness and tension and muscle knots because those muscles are always tense. You're going to have fatigue because you're being hypervigilant about everything. You're going to startle more. You're going to do things. You're going to have a higher pulse rate, a higher respiratory rate. You may have higher blood pressure. You're not going to sleep well. And then that not sleeping well is going to increase the cortisol again the next day. So it ends up kind of creating this whole cycle that is not healthy for us overall. And when we do that, like I said, our immune system is suppressed. Not so much to the point where we're, you know, it's not equivalent to taking an immunosuppressant. You're not going to be, you know, not able to go do XYZ, but it's lower. And so if you guys have ever known anybody in college, it's a fairly known phenomenon that a lot of kids go home on break after midterms or after finals, and they get sick, and they're sick as a dog for like the whole week that they're home, and then they go back to school and they're like, that was miserable. That's because they were so stressed out during their testing week that their immune system was suppressed, and they got exposed to some cold or something like that normally their body would have said, you're there, maybe I'll get a sniffle, maybe I'll get a something, and, you know, fight it off. But because they got so stressed out, they suppressed their immune system from the high cortisol over that week, and they probably weren't sleeping. They were, you know, making that choice of staying up late trying to study, which is counterproductive, by the way, if any of you need to know that. But they end up suppressing it, exposed, their body can't fight it off, and now they get this cold, and it's usually, you know, a worse cold than they normally get. And so then they stay sick for, you know, their break. That can happen to us as well in our day-to-day. We can get sick more often. Not everybody, obviously, but that's a possibility. We can have those digestive issues. We can have all of those body issues. And so we're getting things worse, but we also can't maintain any of our restorative things because our body's not going to put energy into, you know, making fresh skin cells and refixing other cells of the body, other organ systems and things like that that may need some restoring or memory building in our brain, right? We're not going to make a whole lot of new long-term memories. We're not going to make a lot of, actual recovery. My cat is still bumping. We can't do any of those things when our cortisol levels are super high. So we're not recovering and we're making things worse. So from a physiologic standpoint, figuring out ways to reduce our overall cortisol is very beneficial. So one of the simple things, and I say simple with a whole lot of, I know it's really not simple, is to try to figure out a way to get a little more sleep. And I'll get into that. I keep saying that the last couple of weeks. Sleep is so important. There's a lot of tips and tricks, but try to schedule something. If you know, if it's already like 10, 11 o'clock at night and it's, you got to go to bed kind of thing, but I just want to do this one more thing, don't do it. Try to not do it. Cut out screens for the last hour before bed. Let your body naturally calm down and get some sleep and go to sleep. See if you can, prioritize that. Give yourself the opportunity. There's a lot to it. Sleep is not easy by any means. A lot of people, especially the high achieving, overworked ADHD people, it's any of those things that I just listed will make sleep harder. So I'm not trying to be trite. It's hard. But if you can try to get your sleep better, go for it. And maybe talk to your doctor about the possibility of having some kind of sleep issue like sleep apnea. There's a lot of people who have that undiagnosed, and that really significantly increases your risk of elevated cortisol from lack of sleep. Also, try to find a time where you can just go where you can go guilt-free for a non-emergency time. There's no lions chasing you. You turn off the phone. Emails don't need to be managed. Nobody needs you. Nobody needs anything. Maybe you're just going to go out and play with your kids. Maybe you're going to do a puzzle in the evening. Maybe you're going to hang outside and look. It's summertime, right? It's nice. Spend an hour a week that you've prioritized to just relax and see if you can get your overall cortisol levels to go down, at least for that 1 hour. And maybe for that day, and see if that helps make anything a little bit easier. Verbally, if you need to, out loud, tell your brain, there is nothing emergent happening right now. I do not need to be anywhere or to do anything. Everything can wait, right? And then let yourself have that time. All right, my dears, this has been another week of Actually Sustainable. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you think someone else would benefit from it, please go ahead and share it. And if you want to listen to all of my episodes, please like, share, follow, subscribe, etc. I hope you enjoy your wonderful week, my dears, and I will talk to you again next week.